Hello, welcome to chapter 3 of the Iron Man. What's to be done with the Iron Man? So, spring came round the following year, leaves unfurled from the buds, daffodils speared up from the soil, and everywhere the grass shook with new green points. The round hill over the Iron Man was covered with new grass. Before the end of the summer, sheep were grazing on the fine grass on the lovely hillock. People who had never heard of the Iron Man saw the green hill as they drove past on their way to the sea, and they said, "A lovely hill, perfect place for a picnic." So people began to picnic on top of the hill. Soon quite a path was worn up there, people climbing to eat their sandwiches and take snaps of each other. One day, a father, a mother, a little boy, and a little girl stopped their car and climbed the hill for a picnic. They had never heard of the island, and they thought the hill had been there forever. They spread a tablecloth on the grass. They set down a plate of sandwiches, a big pie, a roast chicken, a bottle of milk, a bowl of tomatoes, a bag full of boiled eggs, a dish of butter, and a loaf of bread with cheese and salt and cups. The father got out his stove, going to boil water for tea, and they all lay back on rugs, munching food and waiting for the kettle to boil under the blue sky. Suddenly the father said, "That's funny." "What is it?" asked the mother. "I felt the ground shake," the father said. "Here, right beneath us." "Probably an earthquake in Japan," said his mother. "An earthquake in Japan?" cried the little boy. "How could that be?" So the father began to explain how an earthquake in a far distant country that shakes down buildings and empties lakes sends a jolt right through the earth. People far away in other countries feel it as nothing more than a slight trembling of the ground. An earthquake that knocks a city flat in South America might do no more than shake a picture off a wall in Poland. But as the father was talking, the mother gave a little gasp, then a yelp. What's happening? What's happening on the top of the hill? What could it be? What do we know that they don't? "The chicken," she cried, "the cheese, the tomatoes." Everyone sat up. The tablecloth was sagging in the middle. As they watched, the sag got deeper and all the food fell into it, dragging the tablecloth right down into the ground. The ground underneath was splitting, and the tablecloth, as they watched, slowly folded and disappeared into the crack, and they were left staring at a jagged black crack in the ground. The crack grew, it widened, it lengthened, it ran between them. The mother and the girl were on one side, and the father and the boy on the other side. The little stove toppled into the growing crack with a clatter, and the kettle disappeared. They could not believe their eyes. They stared at the widening crack. Then, as they watched, an enormous iron hand came up through the crack, groping around in the air, feeling over the grass on either side of the crack. It nearly touched the little boy, and he rolled over backwards. The mother screamed. "Run to the car!" shouted the father. They all ran. They jumped into the car. They drove. They did not look back. Oh, can you imagine what that little boy felt as this huge hand came out of the ground? How would you have felt? What word would you use to describe your feeling? So they did not see the great iron head, square like a bedroom, with red glaring headlamp eyes, and with the tablecloth still with the chicken and the cheese draped across the top of it, rising up out of the top of the hillock as the Iron Man freed himself from the pit. When the farmers realized that the Iron Man had freed himself, they groaned. What could they do now? They decided to call the army, who could pound him to bits with anti-tank guns. But Hogarth had another idea. At first, the farmers would not hear of it, least of all his own father. But at last they agreed. Yes, they would give Hogarth's idea a trial, and if it failed, they would call in the army. What would you do? Would you call in the army? What would you do? Let's see what Hogarth would do. After spending a night and a day eating all the barbed wire for miles around, as well as hinges he tore off gates and the tin cans he found in ditches, and 3 new tractors, and 2 cars and a lorry, the Iron Man was resting in a clump of elm trees. There he stood, leaning among the huge branches, almost hidden by the dense leaves, his eyes glowing a soft blue. The farmers came near along a lane in cars so that they could make a quick getaway if things went wrong. They stopped 50 yards from the clump of elm trees. He really was a monster. This was the first time most of them had had a good look at him. His chest was as big as a cattle truck. His arms were like cranes. He was getting rusty, probably from eating all the old barbed wire. If you've already drawn a picture of the Iron Man, you can add some more information. We now know that his arms were like cranes and his chest was as big as a cattle truck. Keep adding more similes as you spot them to your drawing. Now Hogarth walked up towards the Iron Man. "Hello," he shouted and stopped. "Hello, Mr. Iron Man." The Iron Man made no move. His eyes did not change. Then Hogarth picked up a rusty old horseshoe and knocked it against a stone. Clonk, clonk, clonk. At once the Iron Man's eyes turned darker blue, then purple, then red, and finally white like a car headlamp's. It was the only sign he gave of having heard. "Mr. Iron Man," shouted Hogarth, "we've got all the iron you want, all the food you want. You can have it for nothing. Only you'll stop eating up the farms." The Iron Man stood up straight. Slowly he turned till he was looking directly at Hogarth. "We're sorry we trapped you and buried you," shouted the little boy. "We promise we'll not deceive you again. Follow us, you can have all the metal you want. Brass, too, aluminium, too, and lots of old chrome. Follow us. Lots of different types of metal. Do you know lots of different types of metal? Maybe you could search around the house and find different types of metal. See what you've got around." The Iron Man pushed aside the boughs and came into the lane. Hogarth joined the farmers. Slowly they drove back down the lane, and slowly, with all his cogs humming, the Iron Man stepped after them. They led through the villages. Half the people came out to stare. Half ran to shut themselves inside bedrooms and kitchens. Nobody could believe their eyes when they saw the Iron Man marching behind the farmers. At last they came to the town, and there was a great scrap metal yard. Everything was there. Old cars by the hundred, old trucks, old railway engines, old stoves, old refrigerators, old springs, bedsteads, bicycles, girders, gates, pans, all the scrap iron of the region was piled up there, rusting away. Did you guess where he was going to take the Iron Man? "There," cried Hogarth, "eat all you can." The Iron Man gazed and his eyes turned red. He kneeled down in the yard. He stretched out on one elbow, picked up a greasy black stove and chewed it like toffee. There were delicious crumbs of chrome on it. He followed that with a double-decker bedstead, and the brass knobs made his eyes crackle with joy. Never before had the Iron Man eaten such delicacies. As he lay there, a big truck turned into the yard and unloaded a pile of rusty chain. The Iron Man lifted a handful and let it dangle into his mouth. Better than any spaghetti. So there they left him. It was an Iron Man's heaven. The farmers went back to their farms. Hogarth visited the Iron Man every few days. Now the Iron Man's eyes were constantly a happy blue. He was no longer rusty. His body gleamed blue like a new gun barrel, and he ate endlessly. How did Hughes make the metal sound delicious to the Iron Man? What words did you spot that made it sound delicious? It was a delicacy. Delicacy means something really special to eat. What do you think of as a delicacy? What's your favourite food that you don't have very often? A special treat. Okay. His eyes are blue now. A happy blue. How does Hughes tell you how the Iron Man is feeling? What clues do we get about how he's feeling? He can't make facial expressions like we can. He can't look angry and happy and sad. It's all in the eyes, isn't it? The colour of his eyes. So you can add that to your picture. So blue means happy, and red means maybe excited or greedy or hungry. What do all the colours mean? See if you can work it out. Okay. Hogarth had two ideas, didn't he? First idea was to trap the Iron Man, to lure him into the trap. And the second one wasn't to trap him, it was to give him what he needed, to meet his needs, to make him content so that the people could get along with the Iron Man, so they could share the world. Which idea, the trapping or the freeing, do you think Hughes thought was the better idea? The way Hughes writes this, do you think he's trying to tell us that you should meet people's needs, give them what they need, make them happy? Okay, I wonder what gives you that clue. Right, a couple of activities to follow up. What do you think is going to happen next? What is your prediction? The other group had lots of ideas. Maybe the Iron Man's going to leave the scrapyard and go back to eating the farms. And if he did, would he be punished? What do you think might happen next? There's no right answer or wrong answer. It's what you think might happen. Okay, if you want to do some writing or drawing, could you design a menu for the Iron Man? So you could either write a menu giving him a starter, a main course, and a dessert, and makes them sound so delicious. Maybe you could do a picture of a big plate of Iron Man food with all the things that he'd like on it. Maybe you could base it on some food that you really like. Maybe you could make him a tractor hamburger. I don't know. I don't know what your favourite foods are, but imagine what the Iron Man would like to eat. Also, if you'd like to, you could make a plan for what you would do with the Iron Man. Just put it down as bullet points or tell somebody about it. But what would you do with the Iron Man? Looking forward to finding out next time.